5 o'clock, and we would like to welcome everyone to our Lynchburg City School Board meeting for November the 1st, 2022. You will see under Section B that you have the agenda that has been featured on board docs. What is the pleasure of the board in regards to approving tonight's agenda?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Trost. Any questions or concerns? All right. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and we will now stand for our Pledge of Allegiance, which is so important. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're so grateful to have everyone with us tonight from the public, and in Section C, we now move to public comments, and we're so delighted tonight that we have one person of record. All right. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures, and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to their official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of their presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Public comments are reserved for the public to provide input, and the board does not respond to comments, answer questions, or otherwise engage in discussion at this time. All right, we're delighted tonight to have Mr. Robert Flood, who is representing the NAACP, a call to action event. Mr. Flood.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I thank the school board letting me speak again. I have some forms here I'd like to pass out to each one of y'all. It's two. We are starting a new program here called the Peacemakers, and we're bringing it to Lynchburg from Roanoke. This young man named Sean Hunter will do a presentation on November the 10th and talking about all the violence, how can we, I guess, basically what we're trying to do, try to slow it down. Because people make their mind up, they're gonna do what they want to do. And he's doing a presentation, tell you all about the peacemakers. And if you have the time to come out on November the 10th, 6:30, start at 7 o'clock, doors open at 6:30. He will explain to you about conflict solutions.
Thank you, Dr.
How can we slow these young people down, or anybody that decide to take a gun out instead of the fist and want to kill somebody. And that's what this is about. You can look it up, you can put it on the internet, they'll tell you all about where it started. And I think not only the peacemakers, but what we're trying to do is bring everybody together. I'm inviting everybody, the mayor, the chief of police, the city councilman, everybody that want to see this crime slow down. And just to come out to hear this guy's presentation about what the Peacemakers is all about. I'm going to follow up with y'all email when you get close to that date to let y'all know that we still having it. But I just want to bring this out here and to give it to you in person, and hopefully y'all can make it out, because no one can do this by themselves. We have crime, you know, just I think yesterday or day before yesterday, somebody got shot. A young boy shot a 40-year-old man. I don't know, that's all I heard. But we got to do something, folks. We can talk from now to next year, and it ain't no stop. But we got to come together. We got to put our differences aside and come together and try to talk about solutions and not the problem, because we know what the problem is. So hopefully y'all can join us on November the 10th at Diamond Hill Church at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I know y'all don't answer questions, so
Thank you, Mr. Flood, for your presentation. Thank you very much.
y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I do not have anyone else signed up. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else through any means that has communicated with you for tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you so much. We will now move to Section D. And this is a wonderful time, as all of the sections of our agenda. But we hear from student representatives. And Dr. Edwards, we have some guests tonight from Bedford Hill. Could you bring them on?
Yes, we have.
Well,
And here comes our Bedford Hills contingent.
woo!
Good evening, school board. My name is Corinne, and I'm a first grade at Bedford Hills. And I'm Sean Andrews, a fourth grader at Bedford Hills. At Bedford Hills, we love to stretch our brains. This year, we are really focusing on being scientists, and we love experiments. We are using the STEM process to discover new things about the sun. My group used our creativity to design a way to keep an ice cube from melting.
In fourth grade, we not only learn about the sun, but the entire solar system. Thanks to the grants from the Education Foundation after reading and learning about Saturn. My group designed an invention to explore our planet and create it using the 3D printer. This is a hovercraft telescope to explore the rings of Saturn. The rings at the bottom help it float, and it has a unsinkable platform. The top at the telescope and camera to scan debris in a ring of Saturn.
We could talk all night about the fun ways we learn at Bedford Hills, but Mrs. Steele said we only have a couple of minutes. Do you have any questions?
Principal Steele and to Bedford Hills, this has been an amazing presentation. And our clapping and giving you a standing ovation is a response to any question that we could ask about how well are things going there and how you all are capturing what you're learning. And we want to one more time clap for you all and thank you.
I'm impressed. You make me want to come back to first grade and fourth grade. I feel like I missed something in my education. And what a very creative way to come in and just dazzle us all. So thank you for making it entertaining. Don't leave. After our next group goes, I have a special gift for both of you for coming out and sharing with us. So
Wow.
have a seat. Thank you, Principal.
Wow. All right, and we're in for one more treat, if you will. And we're going to ask Dr. Edwards to bring on our guest from Heritage Elementary School.
Okie dokie. Well, I have the proud principal, Miss Sharon Anderson, and the Heritage Elementary Student Council here to join us tonight and tell us about the happenings at their school.
All right.
come on down and introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name is Lane Moore. I'm the SEA president at Heritage Elementary School.
Good evening. My name is Reagan Tuning. I am the vice president at Heritage Elementary School.
Good evening. My name is Ivy Cheatham. I am the SCA secretary at Heritage Elementary School.
Good evening. I am the SCA treasurer at Heritage Elementary School.
Very good.
Now we will share with you our Little Pioneer pledge that we recite each day in #1 Little Orange Country. We are in school to get an education. I will listen, follow directions, and do my work. I will be honest and do what is right. I will treat others the way I want to be treated. I will think about the feelings of others. I come to school to learn, and I will learn. By doing all these things, I will be proud of myself, and others will be proud of me too.
Outstanding. And more?
Is there more?
Yes.
That's what I thought. All right.
We will share our VTSS school-wide chant now. Pioneer pride is going wide. We're prepared, respectful, in control, determined and engaged. That's our goal.
We are excited to share with you a short presentation of fun activities we have been doing in our first quarter at #1 Little Orange Country.
Outstanding.
Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for allowing us to come this evening to share all the great things that are happening at Heritage Elementary School.
Dr. Edwards?
So once again, you got a glimpse at the excellent talent and leadership that is within our district, and I think they should write a pledge for us. If we started our meetings with a pledge,
Right.
just the way the kids did. So we're so proud of you, and thank you for coming and sharing what's happening at your schools with us. We are committed to developing leaders, and I hope the message is clear. You don't have to be an adult to be a leader. Leadership starts the moment you decide, I want to contribute and do something good for my community, my family, myself. So congratulations on being leaders in Lynchburg City, and I have a little gift for each one of you for coming out.
This is absolutely amazing to both principals, Principal Steele and Principal Anderson, your young people. Tremendous job.
And then we'll take a picture because I know parents like
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, I think that would make. I want to ask you to ask.
All right, parents, this is that photo op.
And Dr. Edwards, the board would like to be in one of the pictures.
I have to move the podium. You want us to come back? Yes, please.
Yeah, could you?
The board is jealous of all my.
That's exactly right. And Dr. Edwards, as you all come, the students and the principals and parents, once we complete this picture, if you're able, we would like you to stay, if you're able, to hear our two high school representatives give their presentations, because that will kind of give you a flow of how you're going to progress, and one day maybe be able to sit in one of their seats and give a presentation from the high schools.
The parents don't want us in it. We just threw in the magnet.
Can I break the protocol and send this young man up there? He's a proud dad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no wonder he was standing, yeah.
Where I'm at. We take pictures all the time.
I have no problem if you want to do that. Okay. Amazing. Wow. Thank you again, Principal Anderson and Principal Steele, and any other pictures.
Where's Mom?
Mrs. Walker and any of the other staff members from our school. Thank you for being here tonight.
And thank you, parents and loved ones.
Dr. Edwards, this is such a marvelous addition to our board meeting, and we're so proud of our elementary students at both elementary schools, and all of them. We're going to now move quickly into our student reps, and Cameron, if you could go ahead from EC Glass, and then Kaylin from Heritage High School.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty.
Take your time.
You're good. We're good.
I will share this.
Congratulations to you, Mr. Andrews.
Yes, sir. Too, I'm impressed. Something we need to tout is you have fourth graders using a 3D printer. That's outstanding. You have first graders obviously utilizing some design techniques and trying to keep an ice cube from melting. I mean, those are excellent scientific endeavors.
You better believe it.
And the other children doing it, just SCA, student government, teaching them to be leaders and involved. So
I
that's,
do 3D printers in gov school, so these guys are way ahead with
that's right. I love it. Love it. Another thing for our kindergarten road shows that's going on to tout.
Yes, sir. Very well said, Mr. Trost and Dr. Gupta.
And the young people, the student government is good stuff.
Do we want to switch?
Could we? Yeah.
And don't,
She's working hard, though.
It'll be all right. Caitlin, if you want to go.
Oh, that's yours.
Got it.
Oh, she got it? Okay, good.
No, this is,
It's all good.
is that Heritage? That's Heritage, I think.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I feel a lot of pressure now. I don't have any walk-up music.
We'll bring you some pyrotechnics next time.
Well, for Heritage High School, we've had a lot that went on this month. Can we go to the next one? Our sports teams have been on fire. Our football team won their homecoming game on October 7th, against Brookville. Our football team also beat Liberty High School 56-0. Congratulations to our cheer team for making it to the regional competition at Spotswood High School. They competed on October 22nd. Our homecoming king and queen were Tyshawn Brown and Ashani Hull. That our homecoming game, like I said, was on October 7th. Congratulations to them. Pioneer Theater's competition team placed 4th out of the 33 schools at the Virginia Theater Association's annual conference. They will compete in the Virginia High School League District Competition this Saturday, November 5th. And not on the slide, but special shout out to school board members, Dr. Brennan and Mr. Trost, for coming out to see 2 of our shows this past month. We're all very grateful, and I know that we all appreciated that. So
Our pleasure.
our marching band also competed this past week. The Big Orange Marching Machine competed at Salem Stadium on October 26th and at William Byrd on October 29th. The Big Orange Marching Machine finished 2nd in Class AA, 1st place in marching and percussion, and 2nd in general effect. Virginia College Application Week took place October 24th through 28th. Many representatives from Virginia universities came to Heritage and admitted students on site. Shout out to our Beacon of Hope employees who helped organize and carry out Virginia College Application Week. Last Friday, Heritage students attended a bonfire to celebrate the final home game of the season. The Heritage Building Trade students were able to meet with local businesses and try out an excavator, which I thought was very cool. And I don't have a picture because this just happened today, which hopefully you'll see in a second. But our cross-country team both teams advanced to the Region 3C tournament, and the boys team won the 3A Seminole District tournament.
Fantastic.
And I shared the presentation with Mr. Journey, so hopefully he can.
I'm glad you know this technology. Good for you. There we go.
Let me see if make sure it's sent.
There we go.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I'm so sorry about all of that.
Fine.
We have also had a very busy month at EC Glass. Last week, we hosted our Virginia College Application Week, where we had on-site admissions from local colleges such as Longwood, University of Lynchburg, Sweetbriar, Liberty, and a couple more. We were also offered free applications where we had a waiver and were able to apply for free, which is a big deal. And a lot of students also received scholarships.
Nice.
Our Marching Hilltoppers have had a very busy and successful month so far. We went to the Cavalier Classic at Lord Botetourt on October 22nd. We placed first in every single caption, including first place in 4A and overall grand champions regardless of class.
Wow. Fantastic.
On Saturday, we went to JMU for the Parade of Champions. There, we received first place percussion, and overall in our class, we received second place, and we were 10th of a point away from getting first place.
Wow.
Our EC Glass Theater has their show, Pride and Prejudice, on November 17th and 19th, so we encourage you guys to come out. I would also like to congratulate them for placing in the top 6 this weekend at VTA. Here's our wonderful student section who continues to show up to every single home game. Our EC Glass Athletics have been doing amazing. Our varsity field hockey team had their last in-season game. Our varsity volleyball game has moved on to their districts, and our varsity football team hosts their last home football game this Friday against the LCA Bulldogs. Thank you.
Well, I am telling you, Dr. Edwards and board, unless I'm not hearing well, our students are doing very well in both high schools, coming in first place. Cameron and Kaylin, two masterfully done presentations, and just to see the elementary students, to know that your mom was a member of the school board, now you all are student reps. There's some great work going on in Lynchburg and Lynchburg City Schools. Let's give all of our student representatives. Thank you very much. Board, we will now move to Section E, our finance report, and Dr. Edwards will bring on Director Kapazi.
Yes, so we're going to give the September 22 revenues report. Ms. Kabazi.
Sure. Again, the September 22 in comparison to the same point last year, September 21, You can see as far as our revenues go, they're slightly higher received this year in comparison to last year at this time. Our expenditures are almost equal. And then our expenditures, including the encumbrances, are slightly higher. That is what we're pushing for us, for those encumbrances and those expenditures to be greater closer to the beginning of the year. So that is a push that we'll be reaching out to our principals and directors again to make. Health insurance summary. This is a comparison of August 22, where we were just last month, or the month before, and then September of 22. We are approximately 31.96% greater in debt than where we were last year at this time. That is because of the excess. There was no excess carryover into this year. We started at 0. We are seeing just a slight improvement as far as that 10%, because it only hit the one payroll at the end of September. So that's why you see a slight increase in the receipts, but that is not the full impact of that. We'll have to measure that in October. So the graphs are just showing the information above. Those expenditures, like I said, you can look at the expenditures including encumbrances, and that they're slightly greater this year at this time versus last year at this time. And then the health insurance summary, as I said, we have a greater deficit this year at this time than we did last year at this time. I think we'll wait until next month, as far as those additional receipts, to see what that does for us, to see how we react. Going into our CARES funding summary. Number 1 is our CARES and gear that were due September 30, or sorry, just our CARES that were due September 30. Now the 84.8% spent is just the LCS portion. That is not our private schools portion. The LCS portion being the $2.5 million, and that is just what is already spent. We do have amendments and then budget transfers that are waiting on VDOE to approve those. Everything has to be done by November 15th, so we are slowly getting those approvals back from VDOE and then making those budget transfers and then submitting for the reimbursements. But this is just exactly what has been spent thus far. The other, being number 4, was also due September 30. If you're not familiar, Christy Compton, our grants supervisor, and her grant specialist, Dominique Thompson, have moved from CNI into finance. We're meeting weekly, and we've started a new plan to start attacking those grants that are due next year and the year after that, as far as CARES goes, to be able to get a greater handle on that right now, so that we have more of that money spent before it becomes due. Does anybody have any questions about it?
All right, we're going to entertain questions, Mr. Trost, and then Dr. Gupta.
Thank you very much. Specifically with respect to the CARES funding.
Yes.
My understanding is item number 4 is basically coming to a close. Is that correct?
Yes, it has closed. All of the spending had to be done by by September 30.
Okay.
We have to have everything approved by VDOE by November 15th.
And number 6, which sounds like we have another year or so left on that to spend some money, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Specifically under number 6, and then any other items under the CARES funding, can we utilize any of that money to maybe hire back some retired teachers for specific tutoring assignments? Can we put any kind of bonuses in place for teachers that have their children meeting the SOL requirements? And then maybe can we utilize any of that money to basically subsidize or direct fund tutoring for children that we've identified could utilize some tutoring outside of schools to maybe help them recapture some of the learning loss that they've experienced?
So all of those are allowable expenses as far as to close the achievement gap and to make up for any losses. As I said, we're in the process now where Christy is going back to the principals and the directors to have a conversation with them to do exactly that, to specifically identify between now and then, what do we do with this money? Rather than coming up with things on the fly, we want a full plan that says between now and September of 2023, what is it exactly that we're going to use it on? Because we also want it to be, you know, such as you're saying, hire back teachers. I don't know if those teachers are available at this time.
Right.
So I like the concept, but that's where we're trying to make sure that what we're putting in the plan is something we can actually achieve.
And go ahead, yes, thing.
Well, I would just say for both line 6 and line 7, we have allocated funds for just what you're talking about. And last year we had retired teachers who were hired to come in and tutor during the day. We have the same program in place this year. Individual schools were able to, it's really, we say apply for, but they are approved based on, you know, all of them have been approved, but they're able to gain money for before and after school tutoring, which would be tutoring that's done mostly by LCS staff that are currently employed. And they're receiving stipends for that, but we also have money allocated to bring tutors in during the day, and those have been our retired teachers that want to come in for a couple of hours during the day. So we have allocated quite a bit of money for some of the things that you're talking about, and that's already taken place.
Fantastic. What about for, I guess you call it remedial after-school work, evening work? Do we have any plans in place to hire tutors or teachers for outside of school hours? Because
we do.
Okay, excellent.
We do, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, very good. And I hate to reinvent the wheel. Do you have other jurisdictions that have plans in place? Are you talking to other jurisdictions and saying, hey, this worked, this didn't work?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Good work. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Dr. Gupta.
I had a non-finance comment, then I'll come back to the finance one. Is that okay? I missed the board because Miss Anderson is there and she'll leave. But I was there at one of the events with our deputy superintendent. I call it a brain teaser event. And Miss Isabella Bank, one of our students, defeated our deputy superintendent outright in a math game. And nothing to take against his work performance, but Miss Carroll, Miss Wilson, Miss Irwin, and Miss Osbar were the teachers in that room. And Miss Isabella Banks' mother also, Miss Banks, works at Heritage Elementary. So I just wanted to say a few
Rub it in.
recount.
There you go.
That's great work, Dr. Gupta. Thank you again, Principal Anderson.
Thank you for letting me do that. Coming back to the finance and coming back to item number 7, I have asked for a plan because this funds, I know we have till 2024. It's 2 years out. 2 high school classes will graduate by that time. Means those kids who suffered a learning loss, there will be a lost generation for the years to come without utilizing this money. We have used only, 24% of that, $28 million. It means about $18+ million is sitting there. I know money cannot buy the education, but the resources are there. So what is the plan to use those resources now, then 2 years out when it'll be too late for that learning loss recovery?
So exactly as Amy was saying, that there are plans in place already, and what Christy is doing is going back to refresh those, because like you said, this is a whole nother 2 years, and we've had staff changes and things like that, and we want to make sure that we're able to incorporate what, say, Sam Coleman would like to, you know, put into place, or Dr. Brown would like to put into place, in addition to what was already decided before. So that is what the grants team is working with to see if we need to, and when I say working with those principals, directors, Amy Pugh, Mr. Coleman, the same thing, working with them to make sure that those plans are something that we can attain and something that we can put into place now. The project management is the piece that Christy is going to be all over as far as those 2 years and making sure that plan is followed and the money is spent.
See what, for me, the dates, you look at March 21. Today is November 22. This grant money is till September 24. March 21 is when this money was allocated to Lynchburg City Schools. Right? So we are almost a year and a half out, and we have not even used 50% of that money.
Oh.
To me, it's near and dear because it's all about achievement gap, learning loss, everything we talk about is there. The resources are there, and I hope we can use that money to get something good out of it before it's too late. But these kids will be gone. They will be graduating year after year. We'll have a lost generation.
Dr. Edwards, do you want to respond to, you don't have to, you want to
Sure, I can certainly jump in there. Part of what we do is as we put a project forward, complete that project, and then sometimes there's leftover money, we've been shifting, trying to spend the early expiration dollars before the later expiration dollars. So there's a lot of behind the scenes shifting that you don't see when money becomes available from a previous project. The second thing that I will say about that, and I think it's evident just in what you saw tonight, is the biggest resource that our students have are people, right? It's the teachers, it's the instructional assistants, it's the coaches that work with them, and the biggest thing that we're struggling with trying to get is people. And while we 100% support tutoring, summer program, before school program, Saturday program with families, right, is what you're doing, and all kinds of during the day things, often it's difficult to get people to actually commit to doing those things, and that's part of the struggle. And our teachers are fantastic, and you would think with all the teachers that we have, and I bet if we go back 10, 12 years, and you say, do you want to stay after and do an after-school program? The answer would be yes. Today, that answer is, I'm a little exhausted right now. And I've been not only teaching my class, but possibly covering another class or providing lesson plans for a substitute or helping out with a student teacher. So we're seeing some of that in that, and we keep trying to be very competitive in terms of getting the resources. The other way to get tutoring in, if it's not your own staff, which is usually the better option because they know your kids, is outside and hiring outside companies and outside tutors to work with our students. Some of that is online, and many of our kids, they're done with online. They don't want online tutoring. They want a face-to-face tutor that's at a convenient time for them. So we are struggling a little bit with that, but we are pursuing those options. And I agree with you, the time is now to really go hard and heavy on working on learning recovery, and I know individual buildings are doing some fantastic things with that, so we'll continue to do that. I think what we need to do is probably share more of what we're doing at the building levels to you all, so that you can actually see what's going on at the building levels, which may not be reflected in the CARES money summaries.
Yeah, I think that's what's needed to help address what your concern is. We need to see a little bit more specific.
I mean, I'm just looking at two
Just an
principals, and
awareness.
off the top of my head, I know that they're working like
Yeah.
crazy hard back there to just have a whole bunch of different things, tutoring, specialized programs, things for families, helping families read with kids, and all kinds of things going on in just those two buildings alone. And that's just multiplied across buildings.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edwards, and on Dr. Gupta's question, because I think it is a very pertinent question. I saw the principals nodding their heads back there. So robust work is going on, yet the question is a valid question. And School Board Member Day, you think you're reinforcing the fact more information of what's going on.
Yeah, I think
But I think we can all look around this table and at all of our staff, that that's very important what was raised. And we will do everything we can to make sure we're good stewards of that money and that it gets released effectively as quickly as possible to help those who need it most. All right? Dr. Carter and then Dr. Brennan.
Just to follow up on what Attorney Trost just stated about the opportunities for remedial services or for tutoring and different things like that. I know in the past, students were able to catch the after-school bus, but we found out just recently that sometimes that's not available. So hopefully, I know you all are on top of this, and that those types of things are put into place too with these grants. If there's some transportation that is needed too, so that the student can stay back. That was one of the things that we heard just recently, that the student enjoyed the tutoring, but because their sessions ended early, they can't just hang around school and wait for the sports, or what's that, the after school
Activity bus.
Activity bus. So they couldn't attend because of the 2-hour gap.
All right, and I know between Director Brown and all of the people, somebody's keeping up with all of these things when we make note of them and that they are seriously being addressed, because that's where the gap gets dealt with as we deal with those specific things. And so board members, don't be afraid, and you're not, to bring up those things, and staff is certainly doing their due diligence in seeking to remedy as many of these concerns as possible. Dr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to see if I could back up to the health insurance summary and to the revenue and expenditure summary. On health insurance summary, it says that disbursements for September 2022 were $1.4 million.
Correct.
Which is, that's, I assume, is clearly above what our usual disbursements are.
So funny enough, I'm working together with Dr. Wodka and Cecil Jackson, our safety manager, because that has to do with a stop loss. So we're looking into our workers' comp situations and how we can get a better hold on who's out, what happened, whether it was a systemic issue, whether it was a one-time incident. And so hopefully we're going to start reducing those types of increases like that.
Okay. So I don't want to jump ahead, and Dr. Sinha, I'm going to turn to you for a second. I know in the Finance Committee, which thank you very much for having the attachments to the Finance Committee for the board to review, there was information about the health insurance plan for this coming year. And I'm not sure whether you guys discussed that or going to be part of your report. I don't want to jump ahead of things, but I said I want to make a comment of that if I could.
We discussed it a little bit about, especially for the retirees.
Okay.
But we didn't make any
Yeah,
decisions
good.
on that yet.
Okay.
The committee asked for more information.
Right.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay. So just to make a general comment, looking at the benefit plan that we have for our employees, it really is terrific, and I think we're all aware of that. It's a terrific benefit. I'm really surprised at some of the parameters, like what the deductible is and some other aspects of it, which are really pretty wonderfully low, but I'm not sure financially we're doing the right thing. And I know that the current information is related to the health insurance plan, which will start, I guess, September 1, go through next year, and then we'll do one again after that. But I wonder whether it's worthwhile having a deeper look at our health insurance plan, not for this coming year, which is now set, but for the next year, starting the first of the year, to really look and see, is this plan the best set for our employees, but also from a financial point of view? I mean, we are really in terrible shape financially with our health insurance plan. I think we hope this will be a little better, and it may pick up as we get some more revenue, but we are really having problems with that. So I hope that the board would be, supportive of that. We look at this plan, not for this coming year, because it's set, but for the following year, so we'll really see whether this is the right approach or not. And then my other comment is related to the revenue expenditures. I'm trying not to take this personally, but at the last board meeting, I asked you all if you would look at the previous format that we had for revenue and expenditure from the October 21 sheet that we used to have. And I think everyone was very nice about being supportive of that, but I'm still wondering what's happened to that. We have a $8 million higher expenditure and encumbrances now than we did this time last year, which you designed. The board cannot look at that and see, where is that? And I heard what you said, that you're encouraging that the expending be spent up front, but it'd be nice for us to know which department is doing that, how is this setting out, rather than just see an $8 million difference. So I'm going to email all board members and the administration with that little sheet and ask that, I'm not asking it to be done, but I'm asking the Finance Committee to just look at that and just see if there's some format like that that we could see to get more information about expenditures and revenue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Dr. Gupta.
Just 2 points. Number one, our health insurance is self-funded. So what we get is what we have to, are able to spend. So the premiums add up to $800,000 each month. Correct me if I'm wrong. $850,000. So if you're, when you're self-funded, if your demand is more, then you got to dip into your savings to fund for that. So I don't want to create a fear that the premium should go up, but there's one way to bridge that gap. But having said that, just as a historical context, 4 years ago we looked at to reduce the threshold for stop loss. Our stop loss was $350,000. We looked at as a board, we asked the question, should we reduce it to $150,000? So the staff came back and said, it's not worth it because the premium, the amount of money we'll be paying out is not worth it because we don't have that many incidents about $150,000. So I don't know if the situation has changed now because you mentioned the word stop loss in that historical context. So are you seeing more charges, more than 100 or 150,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're saying that I'm gonna have to look into it.
So the stop loss, you may have records in there where it was looked
Remember
into.
the discussion?
Yeah, it was looked into to reduce the threshold because that way, since we are self-funded, we are covered. You know, then we don't have to cough up that 400,000 additional month after month. Because to me, it's not like every employee is getting sick. You know, some may be large charges and they show up on their monthly expense. So that may be worth looking at stop loss thresholds again, one more time.
And Atul, just for the benefit of everyone, could you explain what you mean when talking about the stop loss measure?
So stop loss works, if we have a stop loss set at 150,000, and they got a claim for 200,000, then anything above 150 will be paid by the insurance company. So we are liable for first 150, rest is paid. So right now it's up to it's set at 350,000. So if you got 349,999, LCS is paying for it.
And the insurance is from an outside insurance agency, not internal.
Yeah, see, I had a colon surgery, and my bill was 165,000. You see what I'm saying? So those surgeries can be very expensive. So that's why the thresholds are very crucial to look at. Do we have an aging pool of employees, and where we know the benefits will be dispersed at a larger amount? So should we look at the cost benefits of reducing the threshold on stop loss? So the risk we are doing is sharing with somebody else, but we got to pay for that risk coverage.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Dr. Carter, you want to say?
I'm just talking about the workman comps claims. I know we really talked about that one year, trying to do what we could to educate all of the staffs and the teachers and everyone regarding using step ladders instead of standing on chairs to decorate different things. And so, do we know how much of that 1,400,000 is workman's comp?
No, because it all depends on whether things end up falling under workers' comp or not. Yeah, I don't know that.
All right, any other questions? I'm willing to put the brakes on and let anyone else share if you have any concern about the report. I think all of the questions have been good. I think we've gotten some honest answers and made note of some areas that need further reflection and potential presentation at the next meeting. All right, thank you so much for your capable report and presentation that you always give. All right. We're going to now move on to the consent agenda, section F, and there are 3 items in the consent agenda, our minutes from the October the 4th school board meeting and the minutes from our October the 18th work session. And then we have our human resources report that is before us tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by School Board Member Preston, seconded by Dr. Gupta. Any further?
I'd like a comment. Dr.
Please.
Coleman, I was just glad to see that Dr. Coleman's birthday was memorialized in the minutes for the.
Boy, it was. Oh, okay. Oh.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you so much. I am 17 years old now.
That's what I thought.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple small items. The minutes from October 4, I think it's in the agenda from that meeting, I think it's item J4, there was a long list of required public announcements. It went on for several pages. Annual required public notification. And one of them, we noticed that the text was incomplete. Pupil-teacher ratios. This sentence it wasn't all there. And so we were going to ask that that get filled in?
And I did.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the original agenda. Where do we see the filled-in version?
It was changed on the original.
Oh, okay, I still have the version I printed from that. So now if I go back and look at the, okay. And then my second comment was on the minutes from the November 1. No, that's today. No, October 18th work session. I think, you know, there was a closed meeting, and I think the minutes are supposed to identify the purpose for the closed meeting, and I don't think they did. So I think that needs to be added. That was a closed meeting where we started our discussion about the, you know, state's new model policies.
All right. I just want to be clear. Very good, board member Day. I think one of the items was relating to policy, but the items that relate to the specifics of the minutes for either of the two meetings, Madam Clerk, do you have that so noted?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We will certainly receive those adjustments. Dr. Gupta?
I just wanted to point out, Ms. Scott, if you could come to the podium, please. You know, this is the smallest human resource report I have seen for years. You take it all the time, so thank you very much for doing an excellent job. I have difficulty counting these numbers because 1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. That nothing needs to be ignored. That's a powerful observation if everybody understands that. That's great. All right, any other additions or corrections to either of the minutes before we call for our vote on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Trost?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're now moving to Section G, and we're going to call each of the items. Many of these meetings I was glad to attend, and I'm so happy about fine work that is going on. Finance and Facilities Committee, Dr. Sinha.
Well, we met last week, and let's see, where are my notes? And we had a full agenda, and my apologies to Dr. Brennan, I totally forgot about that piece. I was a bit distracted last week by life. Anyway, I will definitely have that on the agenda, and in the meantime, I'll see what we can do for our next business meeting.
Thank you
So
very much.
that's my bad, not them. We discussed a number of things. One is an opportunity to participate in a fiscal governance teams program by VSBA. It's on the same kind of format as like the, what was it? Model? Master Board. At this point, we think our executive team and members of the Finance Committee would attend, budget allowing. So I know we've gone to a lot of trainings and used a lot of travel, so we'll have to look at that. But I think that'll be really good. It's kind of late for this go-around, but it'll be useful training for the future. And there's a flyer that's included in my report for that. We also talked about the budget process, and so we were informed of some of the changes, enhancements, requirements, expectations of the budget process as budget requests flow up from the building principals and program directors and things like that. Some better parameters, some accountability aspects to all that. So we think that'll make for a more understandable and defensible budget that we can wholeheartedly advocate for when we go before city council. And then we discussed, you know, what would be the role of the finance committee. And largely that'll be much like when we have our policy review small groups. They vet those things, and if there's any particular policy that has a lot of changes or questions or issues, those representatives are, you know, send that information out to the rest of the board so you have what you need to know. And so our thinking is that we would meet, vet as much as possible, ask questions, and consider alternatives so that we're not so much, so our meetings were prepared and you have that information. Although we're not scheduled to meet except for quarterly, we anticipate meeting perhaps as frequently as every other week during the intense part of budget preparation. So that felt very productive, and I'm hoping that we can really serve the board in a manner that we haven't had from the finance committee in the past. So for example, that might be things like like last year when we said, well, we're going to try to do an average 5% increase, and then in the meeting somebody said, well, what about an 8% increase? We'll kind of handle those things in the committee and review them for their viability, and then that way we can present them to the board and say, look, we looked into this higher level, it's just not feasible, and here's why, or here are some of the issues we encountered. So we fully hash that out and keep our business meetings here much more efficient and effective. So hopefully you're on board with that. You trust us as a committee to handle those issues and take care of it. Of course, if there's anything on your mind with regard to budget that you would like us to consider or forward to the team to consider, please let me know or any other member of the committee. We had an in-depth summary of the capital improvement plan, and much of it is what you'd expect, just, taking care of the buildings, taking care of maintenance. One thing I like is there's over the long-term plans to improve some of the playgrounds that aren't so attractive or nice, because not only do they serve our students well and they're important for that, but the whole community uses them. I know every time I go over to Sandusky, either the middle school or elementary on a weekend or something to use the track, there's always a lot of people there using everything. So that'd be a nice thing. And then we talked about employee and retiree health insurance, some of the things that we're considering there to create some options for our employees. I'm not going to share what those are because we're still hashing those out, and and some issues regarding retiree health insurance. And so the committee wanted additional information on both of those. And I take your suggestions to heart. So if you have any ideas or thoughts on how we might modify or improve for the future, let me know. I'm an insurance novice, so. But I understand we have to be viable. We have to allow options for everybody. And it has to work both for our employees and for our budget as a whole. So it was a very full meeting, very busy. I thought very productive. I'm really happy with the finance team that we have. I have a lot of faith and confidence in both Karen and Reed. So that's my report. And there are attachments in board docs for a lot of the things we discussed, and we can add the capital improvement plan. I don't think that's in there. Are we talking about that later today in the meeting?
Well, we can have that.
Okay. So we'll have that, but you can always log in to board docs and check the finance committee, because all the information will also be in there in our committee notes. Any questions or concerns? That was a long report.
Well, let me say, Madam Chair of the committee, Again, I've told you all I'm just in reflective mode, and everything has been beautiful in the past, and this is just a total growth of everyone. But I'm very pleased with what is happening with the Finance Committee. Whether you believe it or not, I've been serving the last 2 years, this will be my last year, as the Finance and Audit Chair for the Virginia School Board Association. And it's kind of like an oiled machine of what happens, so you don't really have to know much. Everything just is oiled and very, very detailed, and I see that happening with our committee.
Thank you.
I'm very, very proud of what is happening here. I do want to ask, with the governance team, that's pretty high cotton there, this building collaborative fiscal governance team to improve student outcomes and so forth. Do we need to vote on that, or I'm in agreement with it, I just want to know what the board is wanting to do.
Yeah, we don't need a vote because it's a professional development opportunity
Wonderful.
for us, but I did get, if I may, some clarifying information because we had a
Please.
question about the size of a cohort. And Tom Brewster did get back to me and said the cohort should be about 4, possibly 5. And with regard to the information, it does say school board chair or vice chair as the board rep, which we can certainly sub out finance committee chair. And I think he was willing to let us have 2 board participants as well, if we wanted to go that route. Talk with our team, we thought it was a great idea because not only do we have new board members, but I have new team members. So it would be wonderful for them to dive in, especially since Ms. Capazzi's coming from New York. Finance and learning Virginia finance, even though I've been here 5 years, is still something that we need to dig into. So I would recommend that we participate. I think it would be great for us. It doesn't start until March 7th. I think it's the first state, so it will be sort of outside our regular budget initial prep, but it's going to help us go into the next season with some strength.
Excellent. Dr. Gupta.
You know, it's very unusual for me, but I'm going to do that. It's called calming the nerves. A lot of people are hearing the word benefits, health insurance, and they're wondering, what is going on here? Are you thinking of cutting this down or raising this up? That's not the intent. The intent is just to reevaluate our processes, to make sure everything is in order. Benefits, personally to me as an individual school member, board member, are very attractive retention tools for our employees. We don't pay you well, but at least we got to give you good benefits. So I just want to make sure, at least from my vantage point, nothing is being cut or being teared up in pieces. It's just.
Thank you, Dr. Goodwin. And one of our great selling points is the benefit that we were providing, and I'm proud of that, and we will only get better. To your question, Chair Vice, you can serve on that.
Yeah, we can work
You'll
on
that,
that, sure.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, just one other thing I forgot to mention, because it wasn't part of the Finance Committee, but several of us from Lynchburg City Schools went to student-centered budget training, and that was really good. We didn't learn a whole lot new because it reinforced what we're really doing. We're on the right path. How we tie all of our spending to aspects of, they're all linked to budget, strategic planning things indexed like that. But for me, it gave me some talking points to mention when we go before City Council, and I'm committed to the Finance Committee as a primary advocates, but all of board being able to advocate in front of City Council when it comes budget time and our request for local funds. So very helpful, and we were the only ones there that had kind of a full contingent of people attending, and it was really nice.
Very good. I'm so happy to hear that. I clap by myself because I like to James. Thought that was, you got something going on here in Lynchburg, I'm telling you. All right, thank you, Madam Chair. G2, Governance School Committee, Dr. Gupta.
Our meeting was scheduled for tomorrow. It's got canceled because of the lack of budget items. So maybe the jinx guy, maybe Dr. Day can do the December one and we'll have a meeting.
You think you're a jinx?
I'm the jinx. So, but it's scheduled for tomorrow, but lack of agenda items, Dr. Smith decided to cancel the meeting.
And thank you, Dr. Gupta, for your bold leadership on that. That's one of the areas where throughout Virginia, we really are trying to do what is right, and certainly here And thank you for that. All right, G3, Laurel Regional School Committee, Dr. Carter.
Our next meeting is in December.
Okay. And the STEM Academy,
In the
Dr.
STEM
Carter.
Academy, our next meeting is in November.
Go on, Dr. Carter. And Dr. Carter, Madam Chair of the Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee. We're going to pause for here. She has a great report. Go right ahead.
Okay, and we met on October the 25th, and we had a rather ambitious agenda also. Our first thing was to make sure that we were planning properly for the legislative breakfast, or inviting our legislators to EC Glass. We're going to host it there. And just to make sure that we're looking at everything, we decided just to have most of the participants and the speakers come from EC Glass, so we won't have to tie up any transportation to get people back and forth. So that's, if you see most of the things are EC Glass, that's the reason why. So the date is December the 9th, so if everybody can put that in their calendar, and it's at 8:30, and the location is gonna be the Marie Waller Lecture Hall. And the length, we're gonna try to hold it to 90 minutes. That's our goal. And we also heard feedback from last year that the legislative wanted to be in person. So we're gonna have an in-person breakfast, be catered by EC Glass and also the Heritage High School culinary unit, so they can see CTE in person, and also taste the wonderful offerings that they're gonna have. We also gonna have, hopefully the strings will be there, we'll have the presentation of colors, and we're also, I know the members of the school board are excited to participate. Before, we had everyone pick a topic. This year, we're going to have probably 4 topics, and those were the ones that we really identified at our training on October the 17th. And so what we're going to do is ask who wants to be volunteered to speak, about 2 minutes each. Early childhood, and we were thinking Dr. Brennan and Mr. Andrews for that, if you all want to do that. Students.
Mr. Andrews.
Either one. It's student success.
I'll stand behind him.
Student success, and also teacher recruitment and retention, and that's gonna be Mr. Trost. And communication, we talked about that too, how we're gonna communicate with all of the, our local, and this with city council, and also statewide. And we also see if anyone want to take the profile of an LCS student, because we know oftentimes we are compared to the schools around us in the Region 2000, but our makeup and the composition of our students are not the same. So think about that, and as we go.
I'd be happy to do that, Madam Chair.
Profile, okay, awesome.
Thank you.
What was the date you said?
Okay, and early childhood, Mr. Andrews?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry?
Mrs. Preston, did you say you wanted to help with the profile of a student, or is that you, Dr. Gupta?
No, I think somebody else said that.
And we also have Trost.
Listen, do not let Dr. Edwards, she will voluntold you something. She will voluntold you, I've been there. I know it wasn't.
I heard a voice over there.
I think you wanted to do one. Which one was it?
Well, I'm not eager to do one. I'm willing to do it if you don't have.
Well, you want to do student success?
Okay.
Okay. And we still have communication. How we're going to, communication is how we're going to communicate with our leaders.
Is Mr. Andrews going to do
Yes.
this? Okay.
Mhm.
So I'll do the communication
Okay.
piece.
Now, this is how we get work done. Thank you.
That's how you get
Yes.
So just to clarify, our plan was that each of these particular topics that you've identified, we're going to aim for just 2 minutes each. So quickies.
Yes, and also, we were told that people wanted to respond and ask questions.
Okay.
So we will allow probably one question, because you can't get further than that, more than that, or it'll go more than 90 minutes. And so we'll do that, have someone, they'll be able to respond, and then we'll go to the next question. And then there'll be time for someone to respond to that one.
Good.
Okay.
Perfect.
And thanks for all the people that made contacts, and Dr. Gupta had a slew of them in his back pocket. So just wanted to thank him, and I think that's, oh, and we also talked about our legislative priorities for this year, and they're the same as these, and we'll cover that at a later time. Program.
Madam Chair, you had a great meeting, and looks like full participation from the board, helping in various ways. And so that speaks volumes about who we are as a board. And I'm happy that we're going to go back to breakfast, because I want to get some good bacon over there.
And thank you
Turkey
for
bacon.
being,
Turkey
thank you
bacon,
everybody
yes,
for
sir.
being
Okay.
so willing to volunteer.
Okay. And just so that the board will know, you already contacting, and information is already
Yes,
going out to
already
all
going
of the people we want. And we want to make it clear to everybody in the public that you already have started receiving that as early as November the 1st or before, which I'm sure. So December the 9th is a nice long way away. So everybody is properly notified, and that's good. Thank you. All right, any further questions for the chair of our Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee? You can see these committees are working hard. Thank you very much. Item 6, Partners in Education, Dr. Sinha and Ms. Preston.
I had an opportunity to go to one of the subcommittee for the Partners in Education, and they were working on planning for the breakfast, which is going to take place on November 22nd at University of Lynchburg at 7:30. Plans are underway for that, and I can be specific about the plans, but I'm sure that you're going to get information about that at some point. But included on the agenda for that are Dr. Edwards, of course, and people that represent various aspects of our city, including Dr. Wodika, who is going to be the keynote speaker, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
All right.
So plans are underway for that, so please put that on your calendar so we can all be in attendance at that point.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. Dr. Sinha, anything else?
No, we're working on a new logo. We'll be recognizing our partners for 5, 10, 15, and so on years of service. It's a wonderful thing that our city has for our schools, and so I'm really looking forward to it, meeting some of the representatives of the businesses that work with our students and adopt schools and partner with them.
So we're back with that. You know, this has been something that hadn't happened due to the pandemic and so forth. And so we're back to Director Reeves and all of that team. It's going to be really exciting. I hope everyone can make it on that day. And new partners, I happen to know a few of the new partners. They got a letter. They're excited and looking forward to being there to be recognized. And I do want the board to know that Dr. Sinha will be the chair's designee to make comments on behalf of the board at the breakfast. And I want to do that since she is one of our reps on Partners in Education and is sharing the love. And so this is going to be a great experience for us on that day. Number 7, item 7, Beacon of Hope, Mr. Andrews and Ms. Preston.
I attended one of the most recent of the Beacon of Hope, excuse me, board meetings, and obviously they are continuing to work in great collaboration with the school system, and I think have really made a tremendous difference for a lot of the students in Lynchburg City Schools, because it's given them the opportunity, and I always tell them that Beacon of Hope is really the best name that they could have selected, because for a lot of our students, it does give them hope. I mean, college wasn't even a possibility for a lot of the kids that have gone through Beacon of Hope. And so they obviously are working on plans for some things, and the most immediate of those is Thursday, November 10th, which is the Art for Achievement event, which is going to take place. And I have a couple of flyers, and probably most of you have gotten these anyway. But if you don't have one, I'll be glad to share these with you. And there's obviously some really beautiful student artwork that is either going to be raffled and/or sold, and you can go on the Art for Achievement website just to take a look at some of the artwork that's going to be available. And as I said, the funds are going to be used to help some of our Lynchburg City School students as they go away to college.
Excellent job, Mrs. Preston. Did you have any? Mr. Andrews, do you have anything to say? Okay. Dr. Gupta.
Mr. President, Mr. Andrews, I wanted to bring something to your attention in terms of Beacon of Hope. I don't know what their protocol is, but the accreditation standards have changed in the United States now. So there's no regional accreditation, it's just institutional accreditation. So certain schools in Lynchburg, the universities are still not allowed to have the benefit of Beacon of Hope, just because they're still using regional accreditation as the ticket to entry into it. So since even LCS has recognized that in our substitute teacher policy, hopefully Beacon of Hope will align their policies to allow universities in the Commonwealth who are accredited but are not regionally accredited.
Okay.
Especially for the associate degrees.
All right. Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask that that particular concern be noted in our record. And Mrs. Preston and Mr. Andrews are so articulate that I know that they will help convey that at the appropriate time and then allow that to be further discussion. It just, once again, I'm so excited because I see every board member seeking to find ways to make everything we have work in the best way possible to meet the most needs possible to get everything where we want it to be. And I think everything matters, and so that's very important, Dr. Gupta, and we will stay on top of that to see that that is followed through on. Thank you very much. G8 is Education Foundation. Mr. Trost and Dr. Sinha.
Yes, well, we are excited to welcome the new director, Ms. Dawn Wise, to Lynchburg Education Foundation. She's going to be the executive director starting November 7th.
Wow.
So on November 8th, we will be knocking on her door to get together to meet with her. Give her one day to get her feet on the ground running, and we'll be right there with her. So we're excited to get her in place and continue our wonderful collaboration between Lynchburg City School System and Education Foundation.
Hey, that's so good. All right. Dr. Sinha, anything you want to add? Okay. I know they have regular reports during the year. Are we going to wait till then, or are we going to, I guess what I'm asking, it'd be nice to have the director to come at some point just so we can say hi to her.
Absolutely.
So you all figured how that would work out. All right. Board, you may not want to, and if not, we can press our way on, but we'd like to take that's a 5-minute break, and then we can come back refreshed and finish the rest of these things, because some of these things will take a little thinking, as you've already been doing. Is there a pleasure to the board to take a 5-minute break, or we can keep pressing our way? It doesn't bother to me. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
All right. Board, we will now resume our meeting, and we have completed previous section, and so now we are going to go to section H, which is our comprehensive strategic plan, and Dr. Edwards will bring up our presenter for that.
Okay, so we decided that now that we're getting closer to more intense facility study work, that we would keep the strategic plan goal 3.3.2, which is about the school building construction assessment, which is tied to our facility study, that we would keep that on an agenda for an update. Sometimes it might be quick because from week to week, there may not be any new information, and then other times we may have a little bit more detail. So we're going to give you a little detail about where we are right now. I also, because our goals are tied to the city's Lynchburg plan, Goal 2, I just included that in the board agenda so that our community could also see how keeping up with our facilities also fits with the city's goal for keeping up with facilities, since our buildings are owned by the city. But I'm going to ask Dr. Wodeka to give an update on the third part of our facility study, which is the educational consultant.
Well, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. When we last talked about this in August, we provided this sort of overview of the plan. We provided two major components to what our next steps were in this process. As Dr. Edwards said, the contracting with the educational consultant, as well as developing the team of city and school staff to start really working through the master planning process with the school board and the city council for your consideration and in your advisement as well, of course, as we go along. So I want to give you an update on where we are on those two things. So far, we have formed the city and school staff group. We are meeting at least monthly. We also have several subcommittees that are meeting as well on a more frequent basis. There's a group that will focus in on the educational consultant and programming, student assignments, financial, facility assessment, really diving into that report and getting a good understanding, because there's really only a few of us who have read, every line of that report. So we really need a more robust group of people to understand what's going on there. And of course, a financial planning group that will work as we go along. And so we'll absolutely be using some external resources as we work as well. So that process is ongoing. They're meeting, we are meeting and working really hard to kind of set the stage for success, to give you some good frameworks to move forward with. In addition, on the educational consultant side, we solicited, we received 3 proposals. We evaluated those proposals. We interviewed firms. As we've gone forward, we received 3 proposals from qualified firms, and we ended up interviewing 2 of those firms, and have come up with one of those firms that we think is the most qualified to do the work based on the scope, and we're now negotiating with that group based on scope and costs and those sorts of things. So hopefully that will be completed in the next week or 2, and we'll be off to the races. This planning process is going to have a very robust community engagement process, where there will be opportunities for everyone in our community to be a part of the conversation, either in person or also potentially in virtual environments where some people it may be a better environment for them to provide feedback. Will also be highly inclusive of faculty, staff, student, and others in our school community to make sure that we are taking advantage of their knowledge and expertise as we go along. I thought you were raising your hand. Sorry. This obviously will ultimately culminate in a report that will provide various options as we go forward. Again, you'll be a part of those conversations. We do think this planning process will ultimately take about 6 months. So that'll kind of get us in line to where we thought we were going to be. But that will be probably further down the road in the planning process, again, inclusive of everyone, so that we have something really strong, hopefully, ready for approval by the springtime or early summer. Additionally, we also know that it's going to be time to be talking about our strategic plan as an organization as well. We thought this might be a great opportunity to start soliciting some feedback on next steps for that in the future as well. And it just happened to be that this sort of happens to be coinciding. And so at Dr. Edwards' suggestion, we thought we could connect those two as well. So I certainly would take any questions you might have, and we will definitely be glad to address them.
Thank you.
Dr. Gupta?
Go ahead, Dr. Brennan.
So, Dr. Woga, two questions. One is, you did this nice facilities plan for us in August, as you mentioned. Can you update that, where you think you stand now, or where we'll be as time goes on? So, for example, and I know August you probably didn't know where your office was yet, never mind what the facility plan was, but there was a pretty aggressive plan that early fall, you actually had the consultant be working.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just revise that and.
I think by, it's gonna be just a little bit different than what we said.
Yeah.
I think there's gonna be more scope in that work than what we originally kind of thought, and so they may work a little bit more, but I think we'll be further down the road by springtime.
Okay. And the other comment is that, and I know you're sensitive to this about the communications, but I think that to have the school board and city council members involved in that conversation pretty quickly is going to be important too. If it gets too long down, too far down the road, and someone comes in and says they don't like it because they're not aware of that background.
Sure.
I would just encourage you not to get too far down with your committee that's going to be making a proposal without having input from the board itself or from city council, so that it's not a big surprise to either entity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think very early on, all of you will have an opportunity to meet with the consultant. That'll be a key part of what we're doing as well, and kind of get some feedback on where we're at.
Thank you.
Dr. Gupta.
I'll piggyback on Dr. Brennan, but first thing I wanted to say was, wow. It was short, sweet, and to the point presentation. Maybe you can come and teach my TikTok kids about business. That'll be wonderful. But the problem is, since they make a presentation to the board, and if I serve on that committee, it's sort of you bring something to the board and then you're approving it again. So I see where you're coming from, but I think sharing with the board on a regular basis what is going on and how things are progressing will be of utmost importance. So the community can hear through the board how this plan is going, and there's no background noise or fear being thrown out in the community during those discussions.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Anyone else on this matter? Okay, thank you, Dr. Waterker, and thank you for your reporting out and its relevance to the work that we are doing going ahead. That's some great work that is being forecast. All right, Section I, unfinished business. And the first item is the operations policy updates, and this is for action, Dr. Edwards.
So as we bring our operations policy to work sessions for discussion, and then we bring them back to the regular business meeting for approval, and if there were any adjustments made, we'll mention them now. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Wodoka to go over the operations policies that we reviewed last time.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. We did discuss this. I think there were a couple questions, but there were no substantive changes from the conversation we had before. And so they stand to be approved as you had them.
You've heard from Dr. Waterker. Any further need for discussion on any of the policies so stated for action tonight under our operations policy updates? Dr. Gupta.
I move to approve it.
You've heard the motion from Dr. Gupta, seconded by Dr. Carter, that we will approve the stated policies, operation policies and their updates. Any further questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Toss.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you so very much. We do have I-3, but I-2 is a review of BCEZ, and that is pertaining to our school board committees. And so at this time, the chair would entertain any discussion on this review of BCEZ.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Why, it's here. It's kind of out of order. We just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, recognizing that we have 3 new board members who, the last time we reviewed this, I think was in May before they came on board. And since much of your work is on committees, it's important that we all at least put eyes on this and agree with the process, which tonight we saw both Dr. Sinha and Dr. Carter use this process. And some questions that come up during our retreat, but I wanted to make sure that we looked at the language and, as we look at the Finance and Facilities Committee, they do review our current practices and our needs, and they make recommendations and we share with the full school board. There's no action taken in Finance and Facilities, more just substantive discussions about various things that we would bring to the full board for any action or even further discussion. So what you saw play out with Dr. Sinha discussing all of the things that went on in the Finance Committee meeting is exactly what this policy outlines should be occurring. And similarly, if you look down on community relations and legislative advocacy, the committee will also address the development of ongoing legislative advocacy agenda, which Dr. Carter did and has shared with you all. And again, recommendations and any kind of findings would come to the full board, but no action would be taken unless it's action from the full board. So we just wanted to make sure that we reiterated what those committees do in our administrative interface with them. We do have monthly meetings, but do reserve the right, as if the work demands a little bit more time, as we know going into budget season, that will, and getting ready for the breakfast, that will may demand a little bit different time. Lastly is our student discipline committee, which everybody again participates on. And just a reminder that we've done a lot of work in getting Lynchburg City out from under the voluntary OCR agreement that we had. I think we were exited from that in 2019, but some of that had to do with not only just assignment of pupils in AP advanced and honors class, but disproportionality with discipline. So one of the things that we are looking at as we all are leaders and learners is being reflective about our practice, and this board has certainly shown that it is very much into leading and learning. So as the board does its work on the disciplinary committee, as we do our work with discipline and everything else, we will take moments in time to stop and reflect and sort of ask ourselves, how are we doing? And take a look at our practice, our decision-making. Is there a need for additional training, information, as things change? Because we've noticed that things have changed pretty rapidly and continue to do so. So I do appreciate all of you if ever there is a need for any additional training or information as we move forward, particularly as policies and things change going forward, that we would do that. And I'm grateful for Dr. Brown and his leadership in serving and helping the committee, and will reiterate that he is there as a resource, more for what does code say, what does our policy say, and actually we pulled out some policies last time that were very helpful for the committee, just so that the board can make informed decisions with factual and policy and code information behind it. And all of that was always in this policy. So just looking at it again for new members, it kind of confirms the hard work that you have been doing on committees and that our chairs have been doing since we all got together in July.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. And so you have this before you tonight. And again, there's been development over this policy over time. We only had technically two committees at first, and that was Finance and Facilities and Student Discipline. And then we added a third committee, and I'm not suggesting adding a fourth. I'm just letting you know that this would be the policy where if there are any other need for committees that would help us to be more effective and efficient, you certainly can propose those. So are there any thoughts about it? The only piece I wanted to ask, and this is so minor, I'm embarrassed to ask it, but I am. We have it listed as community relations and legislative advocacy. But Dr. Edwards, and I'm not putting it on her, but she came up with a good acronym of LACRA.
Oh, switch it.
Yes.
And so we really refer to it more so as legislative advocacy and community relations. I was of the opinion that maybe we might want to consider just changing that to legislative advocacy and community relations in this policy.
Yep.
We can make
Dr.
that.
Carter, did you have something to say?
That was what I
All
saw.
right.
that needed to change.
So this is not for action tonight, or is it?
No, just
But,
information.
Madam Clerk, if you could make that note that we want to, throughout this policy, refer to that committee as legislative advocacy and community relations. Anyone else concerning either of the committees? Dr. Brennan? All right, so this will come back before us for action. I don't want to rush. Okay, good. Okay, now we're at I3. Dr. Edwards with the FY 2023-2024 budget calendar.
So each year, we do have to vote on our annual budget calendar, and we made a few small changes, which I'll ask Dr. Wodaka and Ms. Capazzi to just talk about on the budget calendar.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. So we did make some minor revisions to wording just related to how we are asking our principals and directors to submit their budgets and submit their recommendations for their strategies moving forward. We did have a very robust, as Dr. Sinha said, conversation in the Finance Committee about the role of the board, but we decided that, our Finance Committee decided that the document as is presented was sufficient and we could work through that as we go forward. So any questions you might have, we'd certainly be happy to take them.
When was this added to the agenda? I missed this completely. When was this added to the agenda?
The school board member day, you are very correct. That was probably added to the agenda between yesterday and today.
Okay, I just didn't receive any notification about it being added to the agenda, so I wasn't able to review it in advance.
So noted. Any further questions or discussion relative to this annual budget calendar? I will remind the board that we did have discussion on this in our last meeting. Dr. Gupta.
Just to reinforce, the Finance Committee, we talked about that nuts and bolts is for the staff to look at, but you'll be keeping the Finance Committee chair apprised of all the movements, so that if she needs to, or he or she needs to, they can call the special meeting of the Finance Committee. So it's not just a surprise to the board, and as the process is moving, that's my assumption, correct? Dr. Sinha?
Yes.
So it's not in the budget calendar, but that's the underlying assumption as we move through the process.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Any further thoughts about the budget calendar? Anyone prepared to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget calendar for 2022-2023.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Carter. Motion made by Dr. Brennan to approve the 2023-2024 annual budget calendar. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
I'm sorry, School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, and we will proceed with that calendar in mind going forward, all right? Very good. Yes, sir.
So we made 2 items, action item, and left BCEZ out. Is there a reason we'll do it, or can we vote on it tonight? Is there a,
You do raise a point. Was this our first look at this?
We weren't making any changes to it, but you recommended the change of just.
Could just make a motion to make the
wording.
changes.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
that's.
I move that we reorder the title for the Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee as previously described in policy, law, whatever it was.
BCEZ?
Before we do that, I want to ask you, School Board Member Day, to ask the board to go back and reconsider our I-2. For the record, we will be in order.
Oh, okay. Does this require another motion?
Yes, sir, and then we'll get to your.
Okay, so I move that we go back and reconsider item I-2 concerning policy BCEZ.
Thank you, sir.
And I guess this takes a 2/3 vote, doesn't it? Because it's a change.
I think you would be correct.
Probably does.
I second that.
Thank you so kindly. I got my little book down here to pull out, but I remember the 2/3. You're right. All right. Any further questions or discussion on that? Madam Clerk, please call and roll. All we're doing is voting to reconsider to go back to I-2 so that we can move into action on that item. Yes.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
Well,
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Dr. Day, you have the floor.
Okay, I would like to move that we modify the title for what is referred to as Community Relations and Legislative Advocacy to read Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations in Policy BCEZ.
Right, in your modification, is that going to modify and then approve
Approve the
at
policy.
the same time?
Modify and approve, yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Gupta. All right, any further questions or discussion? We're voting now to modify BCEZ as it relates to our Committee on Community Relations to now say Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations throughout the policy and also to approve the policy. No further questions and discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston?
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter?
yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day?
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you all. You all are getting it done tonight. That's great. J1, School Board Code of Conduct. If you have your material, just ask you to please open it up so that you can see what we have there. If it pleases the board, we simply wanted to indicate that we did receive information about this in our most recent visit to Charlottesville. It is not the intent, I don't believe, tonight to vote on this, but to just make it known that, you know, unofficially, we operate this way, and then this will be represented to you at reorg for your approval for the next school board year. Dr. Gupta.
I think personally to me, item J1 and J2 are important, so people know the direction we are going, sooner the better. So the code of conduct is outlined, and the goals are straightforward, so. If there's no objection, I'd like to make a motion to make it an action item.
If you get a second, I'll have to entertain it.
Second.
All right, y'all doing stuff tonight. All right. So now are you wanting to do 1 and 2 at the same time, or you just
Whatever
want
the
to do?
board's pleasure is, I am.
Would you all like to consider 1 and 2 at the same time? That is within, yes, Dr. Day?
Well, I wanted to discuss the motion, but
You were able to, well.
I interrupted you.
No. Did you put a motion? Did you get a second?
Yes.
All right, yes, you go right ahead, sir.
I don't understand why item 2 needs action.
Which is the
This
Lynchburg
this is
School
just,
Board goals.
yeah, I think this is just a record of things we said we wanted to pursue when we were at the VSBA. I don't know what is the action that we would take here.
Dr. Gupta, if you'd like to speak to your motion?
Action will be just the endorsement in public now, on record, that this is what we, because what we did, when we discussed, it was a
Okay,
closed
so you're
session.
putting it into the public record?
Yes, sir. It was a closed session. So right now, it's in public domain, and the endorsement is of each school board member or certain school board members, that will be documented.
Okay.
All right.
I have another question.
All right. Dr. Day still has the floor.
Let's
State your
see.
question.
The code of conduct.
Okay.
At the bottom, it's asking for everyone to sign. I guess I object to being asked to take an oath to something I've already taken an oath to do. When I took an oath to, do all the duties as a school board member, and these are things that we as a board have collectively approved. I don't think it requires a second oath. And so I would like to remove the requirement of signatures at the bottom. This is an action of the board, not an action of individual members.
Dr. Gupta, do you accept that?
Yeah, I have no problem, but I have no problem with my name in there because we take Pledge of Allegiance every school board meeting. That doesn't mean I did it once. I don't do it again, but I'm fine either way, it doesn't matter.
Anyone else want to comment on the removal of the signatures? That simply is a neat way to codify that each of us are supportive of what items 1 through 12 are mentioning.
But theoretically, could not we vote on this measure and someone decline in that vote, and that person's signature would not appear on here, and so therefore, at some point, they could say, yeah, the board adopted this, but I chose not to sign it for whatever reason. I mean, is there some reason why that would be the case, or we would want that to be the case?
I would, as chair, I'm not that technical. Our norms and protocols suggest that whatever the will of the board is, all of us would subscribe to it. And so if this remains in it, it would be the expectation that everyone would sign it. If you take it out, then it would not be that problem, at least for one. Or I must tell you as a board, very emphatically and firmly, that we operate with the understanding that the will of the board prevails.
That's my point.
It's more of a, when we went to VSBA, they have it on the wall. So you put that signature document outside, they know what this board believes in and what this board is about. So to me, it's more of a, those who don't watch the school board meeting or see the minutes, if they come in to see the superintendent, they have that document signed, and it'll change each year because school board members will change.
All right. Unless there is an amendment to the motion for 1 and 2 to be put together to include the names, unless you're willing to take it out, then we would be voting on 1 and
No
2 as
problem
written.
taking it out.
I don't know if this is an amendment to the motion to remove the requirement of signatures. I so move.
I second it.
All right, very good. So it's been moved and seconded that the motion presented by Dr. Gupta for 1 and 2 to be approved would now be amended to 1 and 2 approved minus the signatures on item 1.
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion on that? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Mrs. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Now we'll go back to the main motion as amended, and we'll just have to carry that through one more time. And we're going to take the same maker of the motion originally, Dr. Gupta, and who seconded that? Dr. Carter. And so now you're voting on the motion as amended, okay? Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Yep. I think it's pretty clear. You amended it, now you're voting on the main motion. All right, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, board. You all work very nicely together. That now moves us to J3. And by the way, those board goals are on our board docs. There's some really, really well thought out, meaningful goals to direct the work of this board, and we're very grateful and thankful. Under J3, you have something coming before you where you will see the VSBA Delegate Assembly Handbook. I do want to say by a matter of practice going forward that typically the chair and the vice chair of the board, either one of the two would serve as the delegate from this body at a VSBA Delegate Assembly. And so again, at reorg, you would keep that in mind and you would go ahead and determine your delegate at that time. This year, due to all of the pandemic dynamics, Dr. Carter served us well last year, and she is serving again this year in that capacity. And so the second piece you have tonight are the 2022 positions. And please open that up on your board docs if you're able to. And technically speaking, we vis-a-vis have not necessarily done this in the past. But as you know, there's quite a bit of conversation throughout the Commonwealth on so many things that VSBA is having to deal with, that it is very, very wise, which is what you should do every year, that the delegate does not go to the delegate assembly to vote his or her will, but to vote the will of the board. And that delegate will not know what the will of the board is unless the board has considered those things for that delegate to be aware of. What you have before you are 12 legislative positions. There are 12. Those 12 positions come out of many that were submitted to the Legislative Positions Committee. That committee met, deliberated, and determined which ones they wanted to pass on to the board, and the board then looked at those and then passed those on now for the delegates to consider. Of the 12, you will see that 11 have been presented by Fairfax County and one from the VSBA Board of Directors. VSBA Board of Directors submitted legislative position number 12, which deals with homeschoolers' participation in athletics. And the Tebow bill has been something that has been quite controversial across the years. But the VSBA board feels this year, for any number of reasons, that that should be left up to local control and relax its opposition to that has been offered in the past for any number of reasons. And you will see a rationale there for that. The first 10 coming from Fairfax County are simply amendments to positions that VSBA has already had. So like many of our updates, just changing a word here or there. And then number 11 is a new legislative position from Fairfax County. So what I would like us to do, again, Dr. Day, I sent a note out earlier today, not even 2 or 3 hours before the meeting, but just to remind the board of that. So it is not Dr. Carter's responsibility to guide us through this process of what she should do. Tonight, we'll take a brief moment to just hear any concerns or thoughts. Now, one way to do this is that if you've noticed one of them that you have some concern about or further conversation about, we could pull it and then just vote on the ones that nobody has any problem with, get those out the way, and deal with it, those that might get pulled. Or you may have looked at them or want to look at them now and say, I have no real meaningful opposition to these recommendations as presented, and would direct Delegate Carter to vote in the affirmative for all 12. What is the pledge of the board?
You're asking how we would like to proceed?
Yes.
Or are you asking for our comments about this?
I think you would. I think the procedure would be first. Do you want to pull anything? So say if you said I too, I want to pull that because I want.
Yeah, there are several of these that I have
All right.
at least some questions and in some cases concerns about.
Tell me what they are.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Hold it.
All of them.
No, not all of them. Some of them I hardly approve, but 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I at least have some question about the intent.
Okay, let's come back to order, everybody. Okay. Let's tell me legislative position number what?
2,
3,
4, 5,
what else? 5
and 6.
And 6. Okay, so that means, Dr. Edwards, you better than this than I am. 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There's no opposition on so far. Anybody else have something that you'd like to pull?
Well, I do got a question about 7.
All right, so 7 over there.
And I have a general question just about how these are proposed.
Okay, I think I can answer that now.
I just noticed that most of them are proposed by Fairfax County, and I didn't know.
That's right.
What's the basis for that?
Yeah, and yes, sir. And as I mentioned a little earlier, that 11 of the 12 are from Fairfax County. The way that works is all of our 132 member school divisions have the opportunity to submit a legislative position. For example, a few years ago, Mr. Flood appeared tonight, but he didn't have anything to say about that particular matter of volunteers, because Dr. Edwards and staff are doing such a wonderful job of at least moving us in the right direction. But there was a lot of conversation on who should be eligible to volunteer in school. So Lynchburg actually wrote a legislative positions about that. And it went to the Legislative Positions and Federal Relations Committee of VSBA. And so you got a timeline, everybody turns their proposals in from around the state, and then the committee determines which of those positions have statewide impact. So if it's just something that your one local area is dealing with, it won't make it before the committee. But if it has broad appeal across the Commonwealth, then it gets selected. And then you send a representative to the legislative positions meeting in person or virtually to argue the validity behind, rationale behind why you think this should be a legislative position that the VSBA should take up. So when that happened for us, Bob Brennan did an excellent job presenting on behalf of our piece, and the committee that year that I happened to be chair of, I believe, voted to accept it, and it was passed on through the board of directors to the delegate assembly. Dr. Carter, I don't want to go into all the history of it, but Dr. Carter had some strong, very pertinent concerns about it in her vote in the board. But when she was the delegate, she voted the will of the board and ended up giving a masterful defense for the presentation before the delegate assembly. So for whatever reason this year, Fairfax County was the only school division that submitted things that made it through the committee. I hope I answered that.
No, you did, absolutely.
Yes.
And this year, some of the items that they have cited are some of the things that we did. I know, and maybe I'm getting off track, but Dr. was budgeted last year, and I hope we approved it, to have dedicated testing, individuals to do testing, because it pulls different staff to do the testing. It ties up their days, and I think it's number 2 that talks about the fact that now, that's what Fairfax County is advocating, that there are positions that are going to be funded to do that, so that because of the number of testings that they're now requiring is even more than what it was previously. And it really ties up people's entire days.
What page is that?
And that's number 2.
Page is the one that she's talking about. Yeah.
All right, very good. So what is our pleasure? So with that being said, thank you, Attorney Trost, for bringing that up, because that's been a question from some of our rural divisions and other divisions around the Commonwealth. I guess people were so busy this year being controversial that they didn't get around to writing any positions. So anyway, but everybody is considered. So at this point, I see pulling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Would someone entertain a motion to go ahead and approve 1, 8, 9, 10? 11 is the new position that is totally new from Fairfax County, and 12 is this somewhat controversial recommendation from the board of directors to say that homeschooling should be up to local control, and VSBA no longer wants to advocate against homeschoolers' participation in athletics.
I will move that we improve 1,
8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Day and seconded by Dr. Carter, that we will approve 1, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 at this time. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Trost.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, let's deal with item 2. And one by one, we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to deal with, and then we'll move on to the next item of our agenda. Dr. Day, concerns or whomever on legislative position 2.
So I think my issue here is I just wasn't understanding what this is supposed to do. It's a request for funding for additional personnel to help with the testing. So I guess my question is, has that been a problem for us?
Yes.
It has. Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Okay. I just wasn't aware how burdensome the testing protocol is, and if it has been burdensome and this would make a significant difference, then I will support it.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Do we want to, well,
maybe there's
If it
additional
if it
discussion.
goes this way, I think we can just go through and see, because if Mike can just do one motion for them. Again, remember, the rationale is there for each of these, and I did talk to Mr. Kessler today, and he said the meat really is in the cliff notes of the rationale. All right, let's go to 3.
And I think with cybersecurity, I know every VSBA conference, they really have insurance agents and people that have experienced this, where their entire systems have been hacked and damaged by different types of software and hackers. So I think this is crucial. And look, and just so, it's just great that we haven't experienced this.
Good. Dr.
So,
Day?
so cybersecurity is, the, one of many things that are discussed in the whole text here. It seemed to me that it wasn't that specific to cybersecurity. It mentions lots of things. Let's see. Talking about end-of-life cycle equipment replacement, basic infrastructure, servers-related equipment, student computers, tablets, other devices. None of that is specific to cybersecurity. So my concern was that it seems to be a blanket request for a large amount of money, and the justification is one very specific thing. And so I thought the proposal was too broad for the justification that was offered for it.
Now, keep in mind, Dr. Carter can relay any of the concerns that I mentioned if she so chooses. She can relay that when any of these proposals come up on November the 10th during the Delegate Assembly. Having said that, does that make you support or not support this recommendation?
I do not support it as currently written. I would like to see it be much more specific about cybersecurity, not just a blanket request for any computer information technology funding, which is the way it reads to me now.
Is there anyone else that supports what Dr. Day is saying?
And I want to make sure I understand the purpose of this. This is a position that we as a school board agree to advocate to our legislators. That doesn't mean that they're going to act one way or another upon it.
And
It's just that this is how we stand, Mr. or Mrs. Legislator, and they're going to go do their vote the way they're going to do their vote.
if that could be very, well, Dr. Krutop, you want to add?
No, go ahead.
No, okay. No, just keep in mind, this is different from our legislative priorities that we will be advocating for as a school board as such. The VSBA has a handbook of legislative positions that we've had for however many years, and we advocate for those every year at the General Assembly, every year. And so there are some positions that they stay the same, and until it gets accomplished, it just stays in there. Some of the positions, we go back and amend them, which Fairfax is wanting to do with 10 of these. They are amending earlier positions so that this year's advocacy would include those amendments. Anything that's new, like number 11, if it makes it in, or number 12 from the board, become new things that we advocate. The lobbyist for VSBA does that. Does that make sense?
When you're saying we, you mean VSBA?
VSBA.
Brick City Schools. This is
VSBA.
all
Yes,
VSBA
yes, sir, thank you.
priorities.
Dr. Gupta, you want to add?
You know, these things in legislature, how will they end up? Nobody knows. And Fairfax is a pretty large district, and they carry a lot of political weight on the legislature. So we like it or not, whether it will become the law or not, we don't know. It may die in a committee. We can spend 2 hours discussing this here, but it may not end up anywhere in the General Assembly, either on the Senate side or the House side. But these are just, as Mr. Frost says, these are positions. We endorse them or we don't endorse them. But if Fairfax is endorsing them, it carries a lot of political push.
All right, thank you for that clarification. And again, remember, and I don't want to get in all of that, but you remember on the VAS side, VSBA side earlier, there's this notion, well, all of our school boards agree with so-and-so, all of our superintendents agree with so-and-so, and then you go and find out, well, no, we didn't agree with that. So the reason why this is being done, and it needs to be done each year, is so that Lynchburg has given consideration as to what is what, and it won't be said that somebody can go back and say, well, we didn't agree with that. Well, it's the will of the board at the state level as well. Whatever the delegates say is what VSBA does. So our participation in that process happens once a year in this way. All right? So, I haven't heard much opposition other than Dr. Day on 3. But that note has been stated. All right, let's go to 4. What was the concern there?
Let's see, 4. So it seems to me there were 2 things here. The first is that the VSBA opposes legislation which would limit the wholesale purchasing power of school boards. And the paragraph above that says they don't want school boards, specifically for purchasing buses, to have to go through an independent dealer. They want to be able to buy them directly from the manufacturer. That's the way I read that. And then the second position was state assistance for and facilitation for school divisions moving their fleet from diesel to electric. So there's two thrusts to this proposal. But then there was in the section entitled rationale, it only addressed the diesel versus electric issue. I felt that this should be 2 separate proposals, not one. I know you probably think I'm being picky about this,
and,
but
Doctor, don't say that, Dr. Day, because you're a board member. If this is the way the process happens, and on the delegate assembly, there will be boards that will come prepared to make additional amendments and/or other statements about these things to pull it and try to get the language changed.
Mhm.
So even though I know that this board probably doesn't want to spend 5 hours on this discussion, Dr. Brennan, we do honor you for your
I don't
concern.
want to spend 5 hours either.
Okay.
Well, no, and Dr. Day is absolutely right. I think you are very astute in picking out the rationale. I think the rationale has selectively picked from things for whatever reason. I don't know if there's a bias there. I don't think there is. I think they were just trying to boil it down into a minor few things, and you're astutely identifying the fact that the rationale is
it's only addressing half.
It's only addressing half. I think it's a fair comment. I mean, I agree. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think there was someone trying to give us the Cliff Note version, and really there is no Cliff Note version, because if you're going to give the Cliff Note version, you're cherry picking what you want to pull out of the rationale as a rationale.
I mean, if you're suspicious of devious political motives, you might say they're trying to use the diesel-electric issue to advance another agenda item by packaging them together. So my position would be the 2 proposals should be split and considered separately.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Any further comments other than Dr. Day and Mr. Trost?
I do.
Go right ahead, Mr. Andrews.
It does say which includes not only the expenses of procuring new buses, so maybe that's the caveat. They just coupled that in there. So I will say, I will encourage our division, though, to keep, as we move towards electric school buses in the future, making sure that we keep, bus mechanics and the transportation department involved in the process, right? Having those lines of communication open so that way we're not, jumping the gun or buying things that they don't feel like they're a part of the process. So that's it.
So noted, Madam Clerk.
I have a second concern about
Sure.
this. Concerning the second part of the proposal, supporting state assistance and facilitation for school divisions moving their fleet from diesel-powered to electric buses. When we had a presentation from the Transportation Department about the new electric buses, and someone asked, the cost of an electric bus compared to a diesel, and I think we were told it was like 3 times as much. So electric buses are an expensive proposition, which you would say that's why state assistance is needed. I guess my concern is maybe for a small school district somewhere that is not ready to afford that, if the state adopted this, would that be putting at a disadvantage a small economically constrained school district at a disadvantage because the state is supporting those districts that are moving to electric and not so much those who aren't prepared to do that yet? You see my point?
Yeah,
There are
I think
grants.
local control.
There are a lot
would-
of grants out there now.
But if the grants are only available for one thing, I'm just concerned that some school districts may be left out of the availability of state support if too much emphasis is put on electric versus diesel. I would rather individual school districts make the decision about what's most suitable for them.
Yes, as I was mentioning, I think local control
Yeah, that's it.
is
local control.
the major piece
Yeah.
of VSBA. So again, that would apply in all
Yeah.
instances.
Yeah, so
But
maybe to reword.
What I'm doing is making note of
Yeah,
what you're saying.
it's the issue of local
I know
control
you
that I'm
are as well.
concerned about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If any of these positions ever turn into a bill, they'll come to our attention through VSBA, right?
No, it'll be a state legislature.
Well, they're going to
No.
watch them.
Before the bill goes through the committees, they keep an eye on those bills. And we'll be.
Yeah,
in the loop.
particularly when you need additional
Yeah.
advocacy, yes, yeah. That's true.
The language could be modified or fixed in the committee hearings as it goes forward.
And this is our chance to influence it. I'd prefer not to wait till the last minute to try to express our opinions.
We got it, Dr. Day.
Yeah.
And the clerk is helping me too, I know, and Dr. Carter is recording. All right, anything else on 4? All right, 5, we just got these 3 last ones. 5,
Let's see, what was my concern here? I didn't understand the specific, like the last 2 paragraphs where it says, the VSBA urges the General Assembly to add an additional exclusion to the Code of Virginia to clarify that the act does not apply to the construction of public school facilities. It wasn't clear to me what the act is. And the next to last paragraph refers to the literary fund, and I don't know what that is. I couldn't find any reference to it in the justification above, so I'm not opposing in principle. I just think this is a very poorly presented proposal.
so the act and then the literary fund. Okay. All right. Number 6. Dealing with standards of quality and standards of accreditation.
So as I understood it, this is wanting the legislature to be more involved in standards of quality and standards of accreditation? Is that right?
Well,
by
it's dealing with existing advocacy.
That the state, the Board of Education is to provide the General Assembly with a realistic state and local fiscal impact statement. So it's adding the requirement of a fiscal impact statement that goes to the General Assembly. And I guess I'm just not sure, is this just encumbering the process of making adjustments to the standards of quality and standards of accreditation? Or is there really a good reason for adding the requirement of a fiscal impact statement? The justification for this is not clear to me.
And what it appears is as a standard quality standards of quality increase, then there are more items that the standards of accreditation have to do, or that there are more unfunded mandates. So there's not that's what appears not to be a balancing of the two. So as one is increased, then the SOA is also increased, but there's nothing to support
Right.
it or fund it.
Right. So that's certainly an issue.
So that's why.
Does it need to go to the General Assembly?
And then the weight of it is on the local school division, so the only way you change that is to get it to them to reduce or eliminate unfunded mandates and to fund them.
I agree that the issue of unfunded mandates is an important one. I'm just asking, who is it that should be making that decision? Is it the Board of Education? Or is it the General Assembly? That's the question in my mind. Who's responsible for addressing unfunded mandates?
Well, these are priorities that, like J.T. Kessler and I forgot the lady's name, that they go and advocate,
Stacy.
and they stay abreast of these.
Now, who are they? I don't know.
They're
those names.
the advocates for the VSB, Virginia School Board Association.
Stacey Haynes
that-
and J.T.
Yeah. And so they advocate on behalf, and when they see any of these items come up, then these are their talking points. These are the things that they're gonna look for to push
Right.
to get through
So you're saying that those people would be the ones who would bring to the attention of legislators, then why do we need a mandated fiscal impact statement?
Well,
if
that's
those
part,
people are
that's
already
part of
doing
their,
that
that's
job?
part of their talking points, is that that's what they're going to tell the legislators and to advocate for this when they go.
But this is requiring somebody other than them to produce the fiscal impact statement.
Yeah, that's gonna be, that's gonna be for us to do, the different ones.
Or the VSBA can do that if they're the ones who are going to be making that argument.
They're advocating on the schools, on behalf of the schools to,
So you're saying that the impact.
I'm just not sure that this is going to do anything but just tangle up the process
So
further.
you've got the Board of Education that has its role, right?
Mhm.
And then you got the General Assembly that determines the code in Virginia.
Of course,
period.
of course.
You know, so I think they kind of work together in terms of how this all goes down, but ultimately it rests with the General Assembly.
I agree. But
So
this
on-
isn't
on this
changing
one- on this
that.
one, what is your concern?
That this is mandating the preparation of a separate fiscal impact statement. And I'm not sure that that's necessary.
Okay, anything else from anyone else on the board relative to number 6? Very good, Dr. Day. And then the last one you all have is 7 on safe school environment.
I just had a question, not related to this, actually. I just wanted to know for our division, where do we stand on having law enforcement in the school in lieu of SROs? Remember, we talked about that, did a presentation at the joint council. I wasn't sure as far as.
So it's not sort of in lieu of SROs, so
Okay.
the SROs will still be in the middle, the high schools, and then the school security officers will be at the elementary schools where there are no SROs that exist right now. So we're still building the program. There's an assistant principal that's assigned to developing that program. Hopefully, we'll be moving forward very soon.
Cool, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Andrews, is anything else for number 7? Anyone else from the board for number 7? All right, as we take a deep breath from this discussion, and each of you going forward in future years can think about how you do this going forward. But now, Dr. Carter will have some direction for sure on 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, with some identified comments which she could express. We need to bring closure now on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Dr. Day raised some legitimate concerns about each, and I tried to write them down on my scribble, and I will give that to the clerk. Clerk's been writing, Dr. Carter's been writing. Is there anyone that feels as though they want to go on record for Dr. Carter that we would say as a board, we do not support that? Which means she would raise her hand and say, we do not support 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Hearing any of those, if anybody other than 2, typically would take 5. They make this real simple. So if I don't see 5 hands, or at least some comments about this, then I know we can move on. Other than the comments stated. The comments are clear, and Dr. Carter will have those. Anybody really thinking about not supporting 2 at all?
2, are we doing individually?
Yes, sir, I'm going to position, and I hate to do it this way, but I'm certainly not going to go through and read. I can be more specific, however. Legislative position 2, dealing with state testing and coordination support. Anybody opposed to that? Really? Okay, 3.
I personally oppose 3 as it is currently written, not in principle, but
Gotcha. And we've got it, yes, sir, very good job. Anyone else with 3? Okay. All right, what about 4?
I personally oppose 4 as currently written.
All right, and that's school bus purchases, very good. All right, and legislative position 5, school facility construction funds and financing.
I likewise personally oppose 5 as currently written.
And I have a problem with that one as
2,
well.
I got you. All right. Legislative position 6, standards of quality and standards of accreditation.
I oppose that as currently written.
1, and then lastly, number 7, dealing with safe school environment. All right, none. So there's no problem with 7 and no problem with 2. And then there was only 2 for 4, and the rest was 1. So with that type of notation, could I receive a motion that we will recommend approval with concerns to be stated for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
I'd like to make that motion that we submit the statements with the comments that have been presented to ask Dr. Carter to present as a delegate, but that we approve the motion, the motions as they are.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
The items.
Oh, I'll wait for the discussion.
Is there a second to that motion? Well, second in the motion fails.
Wait, go ahead. I think what you're saying, I think I will second that.
Yeah.
And well, wait, yes, I'll second it, and then we can have discussion.
All right,
Okay.
it's been moved and properly seconded that legislative positions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will be, that we approve their recommendation with the expressed concerns to be stated by our delegate.
Did you say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
2, 3.
Not 2 though, right?
Well, the 2 and 7 won't have any, but I'm saying with the ones that have it, which would be 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And I just want to
You'll
discuss
be
it,
very
so-
vocal on the floor, Madam Delegate.
That's what I'm thinking. There's only so much, there's only so many
That's why I wanna have a
hands that they can take,
We
and
can
if
flush out,
it's,
I think, our discussion.
Yeah, but.
yeah, and it's 8 of 9, so it's not like unless we, it's only 1 and then 2 opposed to
Yeah.
one of them, and only 1 in opposition to 2 of them.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of that was as written.
I got you.
So, now, I don't mind speaking up, but then at the vote is gonna be a yes.
Yeah. So
From what I
you
gather.
are a delegate, and you, at least you're gonna have direction.
Okay.
So then there's a motion and a second for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to also be recommended by this board. And around 3, 4, 5, and 6, you're gonna articulate those concerns to the degree that you have opportunity.
Yes,
before the
if I
delegate
have.
assembly.
Yeah, because there may be several others.
Any further questions or discussion?
Was this thing vetted out in Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee?
Well, this year, no, because this is really the first time we've ever done this. So, Dr. Gupta, that's something for you all to contemplate. Do you see?
We can talk about it.
Yeah,
For
we sure can.
contemplating.
Yeah.
This just came
All
from
of this was
VSBA.
done, all of this was done in July. Okay.
Put it on our agenda, yeah.
Great.
So the legislative, and just for your knowledge, I will be the chair of the Legislative Positions and Federal Relations Committee for the new year. So all of that comes to a head in July. If we have a proposal, if we don't have, then that committee, and then that'll be released in August, and you've got August and September and October to think about it prior to the November general.
So is there any value when you say that I have some concerns about issue A, that you provide an edit. You know, if it said these words, is there any value to doing it that way? Because that would maybe, because it sounds like it's a clarity thing more than it is a disagreement thing.
Excellent, yes, if you do that. Yeah. Now, I would do it, but like I said, sometimes there are 3 or 4 people that have their hands raised, so they try to call on everyone. So I'll do that to the best.
And I will, just from speaking for myself, one of my issues is I don't want to be called to the mat and say, oh, well, you, as you rightly brought out, you 100%, supported those VSBA positions, which may not be the case. I mean, there's 80% of the way it is written, I may be fine with, but to the letter of the law, I may not agree with 100%. So I don't want to be backed into that corner, and that may be where Dr. Day's coming from. That's certainly where I'm coming from. I don't want to be backed into a corner that, hey, you approved it and we got 100% support. Well, no. I recognize what this is for. I'm not going to recognize how it's going to be used in the grand scheme of thing. How big of a deal is it? But I don't want to be backed in the corner where somebody's pointing their finger at me saying, you supported this 100%. And by voicing our issues here, as I have and Dr. Day has, I think that gives us a little bit of leeway. Not that I expect to be called to the mat, but I have that option if it comes up. And I just think I like to have that option so that I don't give anybody 100% blanket approval unless I 100% agree with it. And I can't say, personally, I can't say I agree with 100% of all this stuff, but I understand the spirit behind it.
And Mr. Trost, I thank you for that, and I'm very proud of this discussion, even though it has added some minutes. But again, this is not a rubber stamping board where things just come to us and we just pass it along or don't deal with it at all. And I think the public ought to be able to see that. As far as I'm concerned, we have the strongest division in the Commonwealth, but that's how we're rolling. Dr. Davis.
I just have a question. Once the convention takes place and this whole discussion, and you will, represent things as best you can, how will we know what the outcome is of the?
Oh, you'll know.
How? How will
They they go to a great cost to give every school division a book that reflects what the decisions were and all of the other positions.
So is the handbook that we got in preparation for the upcoming convention what you're referring to?
No, sir. That's for the purposes of the delegate assembly. Once it's over, they'll print out.
I see.
All of the positions.
That were discussed
that
and
were discussed,
okay.
that made it in whatever modified form it may be by the
Okay.
time it makes.
That answers
Or
my
it will
question.
acknowledge that it didn't pass the delegate
That
assembly.
answers my question. Thank you.
You get that, they mail it out to every board. All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Resounding yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes?
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Wow. Can you give yourselves a hand for doing that? That has not been done before. And we're doing it right. And watch out, Fairfax County. Virginia is on the way. Now we got to do this again. I'll take a deep breath.
Fairfax to get to Williamsburg.
We got to do this again now for J4, but now we're narrowing our scope to what we definitely can control, if you will, and that's our priorities. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Edwards at this point. I think that Dr. Carter can share with us the legislative priorities that was discussed in the Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Report.
And the legislative priorities for 2022 to 2023, we really looked at this from what we talked about at our board training on October the 17th, the things that are major priorities to us. And again, this will be some of our talking points. And one was early childhood education. That didn't change from last year, so I took the same verbiage from that. So to use that student success, we all want to do that, especially we're talking about the academic recovery of students. And what's added there was that is imperative that such programs, is everybody following me on the third sentence? Once established, be maintained to provide educational resources necessary for students to achieve the academic success needed to graduate and become successful citizens that are able to pursue higher education, become entrepreneurs and/or marketable employees in this global workforce. And they're all tied to the strategic plan, and the first one was tied to goal number 1, student growth, development, and success. That was early childhood education and student success. The second goal or priority is personal growth under the strategic plan, development and success, and that's LCS, and that's what we're talking about, teacher retention and recruitment, or teacher recruitment and retention. And that's one of our talking points also at the legislative breakfast that we're going to have, and Attorney Trost has volunteered to do that, and also Mr. Andrews for the early childhood education. And goal number 3, fiscal responsibility, is that we're encouraging the ongoing review of our schools, and this is what we want to really advocate and to make sure that we are talking to our personal local delegates and council people regarding the need for funding for whatever is decided is best for the students to have a great student-centered school learning environment. And the last one is family and community engagement, and we were really ambitious. I think we almost have a lot of time that we're gonna do, that we're gonna advocate here locally, and also with our council members and with also the communities and stakeholders. So these are our priorities for this year, 2022 and 2023, and we can start tomorrow night at the kickoff for the kindergartens.
Right.
And there are more of those slated, so we're going to be in force and present at those, and also looking at whatever else we can help to tell the LCS story. Especially we see the little children, students that were here today, and we already talked about how they were in STEM and also doing the 3D presenting the objects, so we can advocate.
Okay, Board, and I'll come right to you, Dr. Brennan, if you want to speak. I see this as discussion, so either this is going to be a discussion and maybe at the next time, or if we want to approve this tonight and you feel comfortable with what you have, or you have some other thoughts that you want to add, now would be the time to bring that forward. Dr. Brennan.
I just wanted to give the new board members a little background, which is these legislative items are not something that had been done in the past by Lynchburg City School Board until about 4 or 5 years ago, when the Legislative Advocacy Community Relations Committee came together, and that was the goal of what they did. So we've done this now for several years. They're not written in stone. They're general concepts that we strive for, but they give us a way to communicate with our city council members. And so I think the board deserves a lot of credit for doing this process, having breakfast with our legislators, which is recommended by VSBA, but not done until the last couple of years. And I think it's a very helpful event for the board to communicate with both local legislators as well as state legislators. So I want to thank Dr. Carter for once again pulling all this together and making it concise, and I certainly am in support of the goals. I think they really mimic what we've talked about in our retreat and what we think we should be doing. So I just wanted to make that comment of support. And
Well said, Dr. Well said, Dr. Brennan, and as a reflection of a master board. Dr. Day.
So I just want to clarify my understanding. This document is basically an expression of goals, aspirations that we have, things we hope to accomplish. It does not, at this point, represent any specific plans to achieve these things.
Well.
Does it?
Well.
I mean, there's nothing in this document itself, but there may be something elsewhere. That
It all ties into our comprehensive strategic plan, Dr. Edwards, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And then also I would like us to know, it centers and anchors sit-down, one-on-one conversations with council members, General Assembly folk, where this is applicable to get money or policies or whatever, the way we feel they need to be to move LCS forward. So let's not answer your question. I think that what this does is it gives the board clearly something to say. We've got board goals, right? Those are different, and these are in harmony with those goals. But these are the things we want to say to policymakers who make the decisions that can help us to achieve what it is that our priorities that are stemming out of our goals that we have. And when we go to talk to them on the 9th and beyond and prior to, this is what we're saying our priorities are. And from this grows out potential legislative positions in the future to send up to the state level. Mr. Andrews.
So I do want to commend the group and Dr. Carter for this is amazing goals. I really appreciate what you're doing. I would encourage, or at least say that we should, or suggest that we should take out at-risk in Goal 2 and Goal 1. Specifically, Goal 2, teacher recruitment and retention. It says the state should also play a part in encouraging recruitment and retention of high-quality, diverse individuals to teaching, it should say, and just in our schools, right? Because at-risk gives the label that our kids are troublemakers, and they're not. They're amazing kids, right? And so, yes, we have an urban school district, but I'm at risk of getting hit by a bus when I leave here tonight, but hopefully that won't happen, right? And so, just taking out that particular wording for teacher recruitment and retention, and also for early childhood education, obviously at-risk individuals ages 3 to 4 years old, which is that first sentence. So.
Okay, these are good observations. Now, I remember at one point, and of course, the committee, good formulation, but I recall School Board Member Preston some years ago that we were talking about at promise as an option to at risk.
I like that.
Yeah, at promise.
I almost think you just pull it out altogether because it just,
Okay.
rather than label,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Because we teach, I mean, we're in the business of educating all kids, right? Regardless if they're from College Hill or from Williamsburg. It doesn't make a difference their background there.
Any objection to excising or cutting out at risk through the document?
Both occurrences.
Well, you could change it to all schools, to teach in all schools through innovative programs. Because then that gets rid of the notion that it's only specific.
Come on with it now, Gloria Preston. What are you saying?
She's the wordsmith.
That's right. What did you just say?
Instead of saying at-risk schools, just say to teach in all schools through innovative programs, scholarships, and so forth.
That's in the second.
Yes, and
Teacher recruitment and retention.
The hyphenated word at-risk occurs in 2 places in this document.
Okay.
We could replace both of them with all.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any objection to the 2 at-risk substituting the word all to take care of that? All right, thank you. Any further comments or thoughts about the legislative priorities as presented before I entertain a motion? All right, is there someone willing to make a motion that these would be the priorities for the Lynchburg City School Board for 2022-2023 as it relates to legislative priorities that support our board goals for the year and the comprehensive strategic plan?
I so move.
All right. Now, technically, let me digress for just a second. When something comes, because this is something that we got to think about going forward. If a recommendation comes from a committee, you don't need a second. So I'm just putting that out there for future references. That is in there, right? So just let you know that. So anyway, and it goes right into a discussion and vote.
But if we're modifying the document by making a word replacement.
You can make an amendment to the recommendation, yes, sir. That's just getting your future reference as these committees are developing, starting to work in now. You take finance, they're gonna have some recommendations. All right, so, did I hear a motion?
Heard a motion. Can I do a second, just so we can make that official
Yes,
and work on that next
next time? Motion by, who made the motion?
Mr.
Mr. Trost, seconded by Dr. Brennan, that we will approve the legislative positions with the change of all for at-risk Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
School Board Member Ms. Preston.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Charles.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Sinha.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Brennan.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Carter.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
School Board Member Dr. Day.
Yes.
School Board Member Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. You all have done some great work tonight. Literally, you have. We'll now move to Section K, Superintendent comment.
Sure, try to keep it pretty quick. Just excited to be able to get out and about at some of our bike presentations. I attended the one at RS Payne, which is always good to see kids not only receiving bikes, but celebrating each other. So if you ever have an opportunity to come to one of those, and I'm not sure if you all are invited to any of the bike celebrations. All right, so I'll make sure to put those on your calendar. Those are fun and exciting and really celebrating the good work that kids have done in scholarship, service, community service in their schools. Our two high school reps talked about College Acceptance Week, and that is another time where absolutely wonderful to be there and watch young people get accepted on the spot to multiple colleges. Highly recommend that as something to do. Just want to give a shout out to the school nutrition staff at Dunbar Middle School who challenged me to come up there and get a salad from them. And they said that they will make a better salad than anywhere in town, and I did that, and they were right. Delicious salad, and affordable too. So thank you to the Dunbar staff for having such nutritious foods and making it available to staff as well. Shout out to my buddy over there, Miss Karen Capazzi. On Saturday, we both did the I Am Woman 5K challenge. And we finished, yes. Which puts on the radar that VSBA has a 5K challenge. That's a walk or a run.
Walk, Dr. Brennan.
You're gonna walk or
walking
run.
through.
So it's always good to celebrate and support a cause. Much of my time lately has been spent doing what you all were doing in legislative things and budget training and the like. Having done the Saturday, we did a budget workshop, not this past Saturday, but last month, a big budget workshop with our team. So we will be bringing to the Finance Committee, once we finish with our meetings with our principals, a very aggressive budget for consideration vetting that will come to the full board with some recommendations from us. We already mentioned the budget training at VSBA. I've also met with area superintendents as well as CVCC leadership to discuss lab school possibilities, continuing that conversation. Took a trip up to UVA on their K-12 Education Advisory Council, and we talked about communicating during turbulent times. So a lot of good information there. Many of the things we are already doing here in Lynchburg. And the last 2 days, I was away today and yesterday at the VAST Fall Conference, which was extremely legislative and budget informative. Governor Youngkin spoke. Senator Louise Lucas was there. Delegate Glenn Davis spoke. Secretary of Education Amy Gadara, State Superintendent Jillian Balo, and some Board of Education, State Board of Education members, Daniel Gecker, Alan Siebert, and Grace Creasy, all gave us a preview of what is on their minds and where they are moving forward. So lots of discussion about SOL cut scores, NAEP scores, accreditation, funding, school facilities, talked a little bit about some of the pilots that we're in, the Bridging the Gap pilot, and there is a lot that is going on in our state that we are moving forward with. So both legislative advocacy and community relations as well as finance committee will be quite busy as we move forward to meet all of these new objectives that are coming our way.
Thank you, Superintendent Edwards. And if you might, before we get into the board comments, I would, the clerk has given me all of these wonderful pieces up here, and I'm just going to present Dr. Edwards hers, and if she could hand out the rest of these. But as you know, VSBA has a wonderful program in which we have an academy in which this school board is actively involved. Master board, finance people are getting involved in other things. And so, Madam Superintendent, thank you for your great work, and this is a certificate, award of excellence to you. And if you could present these to the other members of the board, and then we'll go into our board comments.
We kind of weed it down here. All right. So again, making sure that we acknowledge that we are a leading and learning board. I'd like to present this to Mr. Trost. And also Dr. Gupta. Congratulations. Yes. And Dr. Sinha.
Got a pin too. Wow.
Yeah.
Special.
Comes with a nice gold pin, Dr. Brennan. Okay, all right. And then I guess some of us did a lot more training.
Yeah, I'm so honored. Dr. Carter has now achieved the award of distinction with her goldfish, and she is, that's her.
Okay. So with the starfish.
Starfish,
There it is. Dr. Carter and Dr. Coleman.
Right.
Nice.
All right.
Yes.
Give yourselves a hand. Of course, new board members, your points are accumulating every time you go to any of these webinars or special trainings or whatever we do, you're accumulating points, all right? So all of your great honors will come next year. All right, we're going to start now with Mr. Andrews with board comments.
I have no comments.
Dr. Day. Dr. Gupta.
I just had no, but I saw Councilman Nelson resign today effective November 7th, so you'll be missed. You're a true statesman, and I'm not calling you a political leader because political leaders say what it takes to get elected, but he's not that type of guy. So your experience and skill will be missed in the city. But thank you for your service to the city of Lynchburg.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Dr. Carter.
I just want to encourage everyone to participate in the kickoff for the kindergartners, and one is tomorrow at 6 o'clock at St. John's.
Thank you, Dr. Carter. Dr. Brennan.
I just wanted to thank LCS's media communication department for all the things they've done. There's been such great press in the paper, on the radio, on TV for Lynchburg City Schools. And for example, Dr. Edwards' presentation to City Council regarding SOLs, which seems like it was months ago, it was just several weeks ago after our last board meeting. The Department of Education initiative we are with Bridging the Gaps, that we are one of the few school districts in the state doing that. And then on the fun side, Deerington did Pause for a Cause, which was also notarized on TV and the paper about this great program they did to children donating things to the Humane Society. It was awesome. Dr. Carter's already mentioned the Kickstart events for kindergarten, which is just terrific, and I want to thank the people who coordinate that, particularly the fact that it sounds like registration could actually occur at those events, which is really a milestone for Lynchburg City Schools. And then lastly, the announcement in the paper about electric buses, which Dr. Reed Wodika took on when he first came on as deputy superintendent. But this is phenomenal, $9.8 million funding, 25 new buses, $250,000 savings per year in diesel fuel costs. But that's just such a great thing for LCS. So great events, great messages to the community, but thank everybody who's been so involved in those things.
Thank you, Dr. Brennan. Dr. Sinha.
No comments, David.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Mr. Trost.
I just want to say how proud and thankful I am of the LCS staff, specifically some of the things that we're doing with the CARES money and the plan that we have in place and that we have been executing. It's right in line with some of the things that the governor had asked us to do or mentioned in terms of trying to close the achievement gap. I think we have a very strong focus on closing the achievement gap, whether you call it catching up with the lost learning or whatnot. Whatever it is, this group of people, our city school system is really focused, and it's a top priority. I'm really proud to say I'm part of it, and I thank you guys all for making it a priority, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trost. Ms. Preston.
I would have to agree with my buddy right here, because this really is a positive group that's doing lots of positive things, and you're doing them because you care about our kids, and
Yes.
There's nothing else to be said but that. Mm-hmm.
Great job, Ms. Preston. Those young people from the elementary schools were phenomenal today, and this is what makes it all worth it. And yes, that's good, Dr. And so, I too would like to say to Councilman Nelson and to his family, Mrs. Nelson, who served us ably for a good number of years, thank you for your service to Lynchburg. and I know you will continue to serve. And I'm just thankful to everything everybody has said. So as we now move to the end of our meeting, all of the informational items are before you. Guess what? No board work session this month, so you get a break from that. How about that? The kindergarten campaign, you see the information on that. The Williamsburg VSBA annual convention is so noted, and we're making plans to have a good experience there. Legislative advocacy meeting on the 22nd. Thanksgiving break, the 23rd through the 25th of November. Our next school board meeting will be December the 6th in this room. We will have our public budget hearing on the 13th, and our work session Tuesday the 13th will follow, and then we'll be on winter break and come back in 2023 if all goes well. If there's nothing else to be said, this meeting is adjourned.